Welcome to the Dougherty Historic District, the graceful gateway into downtown Liberty, Missouri. Today we're going to walk about a mile through a neighborhood that grew between the 1850s and the mid-20th century and showcases a living gallery of American residential architecture. We'll see Greek Revival and Queen Anne tucked beside Prairie School, Tudor Revival, American Foursquare, and Craftsman bungalow-style homes. This district takes its name from Dr. W. Dougherty, a well-known local physician whose home once stood in this area, and its streets have long formed the western approach into Liberty's historic downtown core district. As we walk, you'll notice the stone pillars and tree-lined streets that mark this neighborhood's sense of place. We'll pause at a few landmarks like the Garth House, built from bricks made on site around 1857, and still a striking reminder of pre-Civil War Liberty. We'll also see the elegant American Foursquare and Prairie-influenced homes from the early 1900s, and several residences associated with the Dougherty family and other prominent local figures who helped shape Clay County's civic and cultural life. This is a neighborhood where the architecture tells personal stories about farmers, doctors, civic leaders, and families who helped Liberty grow. Stick with me as we go along this walk, and I'll point out some of the architectural details, the homeowners who left their mark in this area, and maybe a few surprises you might miss on a first pass while walking through this area of Liberty, Missouri. Our first stop is the Garth House, built around 1857, and yes, those bricks we're looking at were literally made right here on the property. Back then, this wasn't just a nice home in Liberty. It sat on the western edge of town as part of a working farm. 2 years after it was built, a man named William Garth bought it. His family would live here for the next 62 years. Garth's story is wild, though. He served in the Mexican War, chased fortune in the California Gold Rush, and later became a Missouri state representative. And if that wasn't enough, his father and two business partners helped founded the University of Missouri in Columbia. So this quiet-looking house, it has roots all over American history. Next up is the Raymond House, built in the 1890s. Richard L. Raymond was a farmer and cattleman, and he lived here with his three daughters. Then, in 1909, he decided this Queen Anne house wasn't quite modern enough, so he built himself a new house in the back of the same lot. Imagine just moving to the backyard to upgrade your lifestyle. Architecturally, this one's a classic cross-gable Queen Anne, and if you look closely at the porch, you'll see Eastlake details, those delicate spindle work and turned supports, which were basically the 1890s version of ordering fancy trim from Amazon. It came mass-produced, but still dressed the whole house up beautifully. This house that we're seeing in front of us is a great example of something you'll only really find in the Midwest, the Prairie Shirtwaist style. Built around 1908, it combined the horizontal lines of the Prairie School with a more everyday, practical Midwestern layout. Basically, it's Frank Lloyd Wright meets real life. What's cool is how untouched this home looks. This is one of the most pristine shirtwaist homes in Liberty, and it sits right on a main street leading straight into the town square. So it's not just a nice old house, it helps set the whole historic character of the neighborhood. When you're walking around the home, it feels like you're entering a timeline of the past. This next stop has some real Wild West roots. The lot was once owned way back in 1849 by Coleman Younger, uncle of the infamous Cole Younger of the James Gang. So yes, before this house even existed, it had outlaw connections. Fast forward to 1907 and the lot was purchased by Clay County Sheriff William H. Thomason, the same guy who actually tried to track down the James Gang. So an outlaw's uncle owned the land and then the lawman who hunted the gang built the house. You just can't make that kind of story up. Just a year later, in 1908, the home took on a very different personality when Mrs. Gray moved in. She was the longtime principal at nearby Franklin School, and she turned this Prairie 4 square into a quiet community anchor. Here we have the Pence Place, built around 1890. It's one of the few Queen Anne homes in Liberty that's made of brick instead of wood, and that's what gives it such a striking look. Check out the contrast. Those white stone windowsills and lintels really pop against the red brick. Up top, the recessed attic windows have East Lake style trim, the kind of decorative, almost lacy detail that was all the rage in the late 1800s. And there's also a special bit of history beneath our feet. This home is believed to stand in the spot where Liberty's Presbyterian Church was founded way back in 1829. This is the Dougherty house, originally built around 1850 in the Greek Revival style. And yes, we're walking through the Dougherty neighborhood, so this is one of the first houses in this neighborhood. It's had a lot of changes over the years, additions, remodels, updates, but the core of the house is still that early brick side gable design. This was one of the very first homes built west of Liberty Square, and it belonged to Dr. William Dougherty, a physician and surgeon who played a huge role in the community. He served as a city councilman, became mayor, helped organize Liberty's Methodist Episcopal Church, and eventually became a state legislature. And here's a pretty big accomplishment. He introduced the bill that created Missouri's State Board of Health. Here we're going to see a trio of Craftsman bungalows from the 1920s. The first two houses were the first built in 1926, and they were built as spec homes, basically built to sell, and they cost about $5,000 each at the time. 2 years later, the one here that we see at 316 Liberty was added for about $5,400. So even back then, inflation was real. All three share classic Craftsman features. The roof stretches right over the front porch. The columns are simple square posts, and if you look up at the gable, you'll see spots where wide overhanging eaves with triangular knee braces are put on the house, a signature Craftsman style. These houses weren't meant to be fancy. They were stylish, affordable, and built to last, which is exactly why we're still admiring them nearly 100 years later. This small home is a textbook example of the Queen Anne style, built around 1890. Even though it's modest in size, it checks all the boxes for a Queen Anne style home. Take a look at the steep, varied roof lines and the way the floor plan isn't symmetrical. Queen Anne homes love angles, surprises, and irregular shapes, and this one delivers all of that in a compact package. This house dates to around 1880, and it's a really interesting mix of styles. It leans Italianate, but you'll notice hints of French influence and a few other details that don't quite fit the usual pattern. That's because it's what we call a transitional house, built during a time when architectural styles were shifting. One clear giveaway is the roof of the house. Most Italianate homes have a really low, almost flat roof line, but this one is just a bit steeper, which suggests it was built a little later than the classic examples. This is the LaFrance Craftsman bungalow built in 1913, and it has a story as colorful as its architecture. It was the home of Elder Frank V. Lewes, known around town as the Parson. He served as a pastor of Liberty Christian Church until 1898 and reportedly performed over 6,200 marriages and wrote over 700 obituaries. Talk about a busy life. The house itself is a bit hidden from the street thanks to the mature trees that are said to have been planted by Lou's son, who brought them all the way from Colorado as saplings. This next home is a classic American four-square, originally built in 1912 as a single-story house, but 6 years later, in 1918, a second story was added, giving it the balanced, boxy shape that we see today. Interestingly, the current owners are only the second family to ever live in this house, so it hasn't changed hands much over the years. And if you look to the left that we're walking past right now, that large flat lawn wasn't always just open space. It used to be a tennis court. It's a simple, solid home with a slice of neighborhood history right out front. Here's a quick architectural tip. On Tudor-style homes built before the 1920s, you'll often see stucco walls. Why? Because many of these houses were wood-framed, and applying stucco was an easy way to give them that classic Tudor look while hiding the simpler structure underneath. It's a small detail, but it really helps these modest homes look the part of an English manor, even on a neighborhood street here in Liberty, Missouri. This house really stands out for its fine detailing. Check out the wraparound front porch. The cornerstone columns give it a solid, elegant feel, and the porch frieze features decorative false timbering and flat brackets that add to its character. Interestingly, it was divided into apartments before World War II, but today it's back to being a single-family home. So, while it's seen a few different uses over the years, its architectural charm has really endured. We're now walking past Heritage Middle School, but this site has a long educational history. Before the current building and all its later additions, this was once the site of Liberty High School starting in 1943, but even before that, the Liberty Ladies College was built on this spot in 1890 and stood right here. Unfortunately, that college burned down in 1913 and the high school was built as its replacement. So as we walk past, we're really walking through layers of Liberty's educational past, from a women's college to the town's main high school, all here on the same grounds that have stood for well over 130 years. This is the Presbyterian Manse of Prairie Foursquare, built in 1908 for Reverend Hugh McClintock, pastor of the Presbyterian Church. The funding came from Mary Elizabeth Dorsey's will, which generously gave Liberty's four main Protestant churches $6,000 each to build a home for their pastors. This house was the only one built west of the downtown Liberty Square. In 1961, the home was purchased by Joe and Eleanor Wally, who were local newspaper publishers and very active in the community. The home in front of us is the Costello Hendren House, built in 1908 in the Prairie Shirtwaist style. It's a great example of the eclectic mix you see in Liberty's suburban homes from the early 20th century. The house was originally built by James Costello, who owned a local lumber mill, so it's no surprise the craftsmanship here is top notch. Later, it became home to Dr. Glenn Hendren, a well known Liberty physician through the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. This is the Whiteside House, a pristine example of a Craftsman bungalow built around 1910. It was built by James Whiteside, whose jewelry business is still running today on Liberty's Historic Square. The house itself has a bit of local lore, too. During World War II, the two sisters who owned it reportedly used the home to, quote, entertain soldiers passing through town. Up next, we have a pair of colonial revival homes from the 1920s. The first home we see was built in 1926 for Mrs. McKinley for about $6,000, and the next home came in a little bit cheaper at about $5,000. Both are excellent examples of the gabled roof style of colonial revival. Basically, a simple two-story rectangular block with perfectly balanced facades. The front doors really pop with a classic portico supported by fluted columns, giving these modest homes a stately, timeless look. Up ahead, this duplex dates back to 1924 and was part of a bigger push to provide housing for students at William Jewell College here in town. The college itself didn't have enough dorms at the time. Architecturally, the duplex shows strong prairie and Craftsman style influences. Ahead of us, this home that we see was built in 1895 and is often called a Queen Anne because of its irregular roof, wraparound front porch, and the little bay projections that break up the smooth walls. But look closer at the porch and you see the columns are classic Craftsman style with square tapering supports on each stone. It's a great example of how architects mixed styles back then to make homes more practical and visually interesting. This is a classic high-style Queen Anne residence, and it really shows why the style is so eye-catching. The architect used lots of tricks to avoid flat walls, everything from bay windows to projections. The house that we see here in front of us doesn't just stick to one style. It's freeform, varied design, pulls from several architectural influences, giving it a unique, eclectic look. Also, take a look at the stone wall, retaining wall out front. It's a small feature, but it really adds character to the streetscape and ties the house into the neighborhood's historic feel. Sitting up on this hill is a great example of the Tudor-style home, which really took off in the United States during the 1920s and 1930s. You can see the characteristic steep roof lines, decorative timbering, and charming details that made this style so popular in neighborhoods like this back in the early 1900s. This is the Dimmitt Ringo Dougherty house built around 1868. Richard Ringo bought the house from St. Clair Dimmitt for just $400 in 1867 and started with a simple four-room house, 2 rooms downstairs and 2 up. In 1871, Captain Lewis Dougherty moved here from his family's plantation in Multnomah, which is northwest of Liberty, and added on to bring the house to the size we see today. Interestingly, from 1946 to 1950, it even served as the residence for the president of William Jewell College. This charming Queen Anne cottage that we see was built in 1890 and was home to the Gilmer family for more than 75 years. Mrs. Gilmer used the front room to give piano lessons to generations of Liberty children. So, this house has quite a musical history. This is the Allen House, built between 1911 and 1913 and designed by architect Horace Lapierre for Schubel and Mary Dinah Allen. Schubel's grandfather, Colonel Schubel Allen, was one of Clay County's first settlers arriving from New York in 1820. He even established a landing and ferry on the Missouri River, which became a key point of commerce here in northwest Missouri. The final home on our tour here is a classic Craftsman bungalow built around 1924. The extended gable roof stretches over the full-length front porch, and those tapering square wood columns are set on sturdy brick, a hallmark of the Craftsman style. It's simple, practical, and built with the kind of solid craftsmanship that makes all these homes that we see feel timeless in this neighborhood. Our final stop is Rotary Plaza, which was dedicated in 2003. It sits here on a prominent corner in the Dougherty District and serves as a community gathering spot celebrating the neighborhood's history and the civic spirit of Liberty, Missouri. And that wraps up our walk through the Dougherty Historic District here in Liberty, Missouri. From charming Queen Anne cottages to Prairie and Craftsman bungalows, Italianate-style homes, and even modern additions like Rotary Plaza that we walked through. This neighborhood is a living showcase of more than a century of architectural and community history. As you've seen, these homes aren't just buildings. They tell the stories of the people who lived here: farmers, doctors, civic leaders, educators, and families who helped shape Liberty into the city it is today. Walking these streets is like stepping back in time while still feeling the vibrancy of a neighborhood that's very much alive. Thanks for joining me on this tour. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder tour. Take care now. Bye-bye.